Hey there, welcome to my channel. My name is Dr. Jessica, and in this video, let's talk about some of the ways we can actually start to reverse insulin resistance. So in my previous videos, I've talked about insulin resistance. I've talked about, briefly touched on treatment. I've talked about testing that I do, and I've talked about why it's so important and how it's related to chronic stress. Again, I'll emphasize that insulin resistance is often induced by chronic stress. So I'm talking physical, mental, emotional, and chemical stress. One of the ways that it does that is that it chronically elevates your cortisol. And chronically elevated cortisol interferes with insulin in many different ways. It can interfere with the signaling cascade. It can interfere with cells being actually able to uptake the glucose. And it can also cause your body to produce more and more insulin, even though your body isn't really responding, which can lead to burnout of your beta cells. And chemical-induced stress can also cause insulin resistance. What generally happens is that you have this increase in reactive oxygenated species, and that can then go on to interfere with the glucose uptake as well. So I hope that you can see how fundamental it is to actually deal with the chronic stress and work with stress management in order to start to reverse insulin resistance. That really is a fundamental principle in dealing with insulin resistance. You have to figure out a way to get your body and your mind out of that sympathetic activation, because that is what activates the adrenals to make and release more cortisol. And then you have to instead push your body and push your mind into parasympathetic mode. That is more of the rest and digest mode. That is where we have a reduction in the release of cortisol. So what does that look like? Well, that looks like meditation. That can look like mindfulness. That can look like breath work. It can be things like yoga, of course, as well as exercise. They break that sympathetic loop in the brain and actually help you to relax and reduce cortisol. Of course, you also need to work to remove some of the stressors. I get that all the time it's not possible, right? We can't just get rid of our families or our jobs necessarily, but we can change how we react to them. We can also make sure that we take the time to prioritize ourselves, and that's prioritizing self-care. So whether that's taking some time to either get up a little bit earlier or take some time in the morning to do a meditation, to read a book, to do some exercise, whatever it is, you have to prioritize that time for yourself, because you can't help others and you can't work from an empty cup. And generally what most clients find is that once they do take that time to prioritize, they are then able to think a little bit more clearly, they have more energy, and then they're actually able to do all the things they need to do, usually in less time. I also want to mention that regular exercise is really important, especially strength training as well, because it helps the muscles uptake more glucose as well. That way we don't have a lot of extra glucose floating around, and then that way we're responding a little bit more to the insulin that's being produced. And of course, dietary changes are crucial as well. Now, there are many different types of diets that have been shown to really help with glucose management, things like the DASH diet, things like the Mediterranean diet. You can go as deep into the rabbit hole as you want, but I always recommend that you focus on a whole foods type approach. Know what your macros are, know what you're aiming for, and work from there. The simpler it is, the easier it is to stick to. Because again, it's not just a diet, it's a lifestyle change, and it takes time and it takes consistency. And of course, working with stress management is exactly what I do inside my virtual program, the Better Health Blueprint. Inside of that program is a course meant to go from head to toe, teaching you about how stress affects the different parts of your body and what you can do to manage them. We work with your diet, we work with your lifestyle, we work with your exercise, all that good stuff. And then we also do some one-on-one, and we look at your lab results, and we can make some recommendations for you going forward so that you can live your best life. So if you have questions about that, click the link in the description box and you can learn more about how the program works and find out if it's a good fit for you. Now, of course, as you're working with your diet, as you're working with your mindset, as you're working with exercise, sometimes we need a bridge for either medications or supplements to help us get there in the meantime. So I want to talk about 5 different supplements or herbs that you might not have heard of in dealing with insulin resistance. And again, this is not medical advice. As always, talk with your practitioner before you start any new supplement or any new medication or discontinue any medication. Okay. Now, the first supplement is berberine, and berberine is actually a compound that comes from different types of plants, and it has been shown to increase the amount of insulin receptors, so the number of spots or spaces where insulin can fit into and then go on to promote its activity. It has also been shown to increase glucose uptake into the skeletal muscle as well, and it can also reduce the amount of glucose or gluconeogenesis caused by the liver. So whenever your body makes glucose itself, that's called gluconeogenesis. And again, dosages or forms of this will vary, so make sure you're working with a provider that actually knows how to dose this appropriately. The next one is a mineral, which is called chromium picolinate. Chromium has been shown to increase the amount of receptors for insulin and also the affinity of insulin to be able to bind to some of the cells. It also has been shown to increase insulin sensitivity by working with activation of different signaling pathways of the GLUT4 transporters. Those are transporters that actually bring glucose into the cell. This one has also been shown to reduce the amount of hyperglycemia after a meal as well. So it's often used as well in type 2 diabetics. The next one is a class of plant-derived products called polyphenols. So polyphenols are in a couple of different categories, but they are generally derived from plants, and they're often responsible for the brighter pigment that a lot of plants have. Now, many polyphenols are antioxidants as well, and also anti-inflammatory. They have been shown to actually protect the beta cells of the pancreas from oxidative damage. So when we have that type of chemical or inflammatory pathway that's kind of pushing towards insulin resistance, this can be really helpful. And they also have been shown to kind of blunt the breakdown or slow down the breakdown of different types of starches that then break down into glucose, which is really interesting because we're learning that they're actually activated in the gut by the different type of gut bacteria or our microbiome. So our microbiome, once again, plays a huge role in insulin resistance as well. And polyphenols are often present in things like blueberries or any like purplish colored fruits, so blackberries and different like purple cabbage. And a popular polyphenol that causes that purple pigment is actually called anthocyanin. Anthocyanin. Hard word to say. Another supplement is actually inositol. So inositol acts as a second messenger in insulin signaling. So it helps with the activation in the signaling cascade that happens with insulin. And it also makes the body more sensitive to insulin as well. This one might be familiar to any women suffering from PCOS because it also helps with PCOS symptoms as well. And one of the main ways it does that is helping with insulin sensitivity, because when our glucose gets a little bit crazy, it can also start to affect some of our other hormones. And the final one I wanted to talk to you about is actually magnesium. Usually we get enough magnesium from our diets, but with the poor diet or the standard American diet, the SAD diet, and with soil depletion, we often are not getting enough magnesium we need. All right, so let's recap. Of course, we have to start with the basis of stress management and prioritizing reducing our stress burden, be it physical, chemical, or emotional, psychological stress. They all stress the body and the mind out. So you need to work with, mindfulness techniques, meditation, breath works, all the things that can help stop the chronic loop of the sympathetic nervous system. Working with your diet is important. Working to do regular exercise, especially strength training. And then, of course, there are a myriad of supplements as well as medications that you can dive into as well. All right. I hope that this video was helpful. I hope that you learned something. And if you did, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. It'll help other people find this channel and find this information as well. If you have questions, as always, leave them in the comments below. And be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you know when I post the next video. All right. I will see you in the next video. Bye. Excuse you, just busting into the room. Bye. Bye. Can I help you? No? Okay, bye.